So far, so good.
Are you hearing yourself through the feedback? Are you getting any problems?
I mean, it looks like it's capturing both of our audios for sure. I'm not
Okay.
listening to the stream because if I do that, it's going to feedback now. Because since my sound is coming out of my
Right.
speakers,
Right.
it
Right.
won't
Right.
go back
Right.
in.
Right.
But I mean, the stream's up.
And are you seeing um, like give a few sort of sharp hays and see if you notice any feedback on the meter.
Yeah, it shouldn't be feeding. Yeah, there's nothing feeding back now.
Okay. Yeah, because there's just because I have my mic on, and if your audio comes into my mic and then back into your audio, the mic feedback, you might get
I'm not hearing any echoes of me through your mic right now. Bah,
okay, good.
Bah. I think it's okay.
Yeah. And I can also turn my audio volume down.
Yeah, I don't hear anything of my audio on your end at all right now, so I think it's okay.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Okay, so...
All right, I'm going to send the tweet out.
Go and do it. And actually, you know what? I'm going to spam my Facebook with it as well.
Cool.
When that goes out. Yeah, I was just thinking more about how all the cool things that this might make possible. It's like it really is pretty exciting.
The system.
Yeah, like the idea of logging into a game like a single player game, and basically being able to play like a surprisingly new version of the campaign like every single day if you wanted to.
Sure. Like, yeah, totally.
With like bosses switched around and new bosses and different items.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Like, could really make single player games into like a totally endless experience.
Yeah, like a Diablo without algorithmically generated levels, but like human designed levels, and just enough for you to be saturated and never repeat them.
Right, and like, you know, human designed unique items that you never
yeah.
You know.
Oh man, yeah.
You know, it's like pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Also, single player modes, like speedrunning modes.
Right. I mean, you actually see people doing stuff like this in speedrunning now, where they'll make a version of like Link to the Past that randomizes all the dungeons. Just for the sake of variety, but it's very crude, right? It literally just randomizes them, because that's the best way we have right now of creating that exciting variety. Because nobody's just going to sit there and like make 100 different versions, right?
Right.
But 100 people will make their own version, and if you can just quickly cycle through them in an intelligent way, then pretty cool.
No Man's Sky would have been a huge success on this system.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could do No Man's Sky, except all the planets are actually designed like in an intentional, artistic way. Like each planet is, you know.
And the game designers could have spent all of their time making the gameplay good.
Right.
Rather than building the algorithmic, like.
Yeah.
No Man's Sky is still just like, wow, cool. Look at this algorithmic world, universe.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, here we go. So we are live.
Hey.
Did we tweet out the thing so I can?
We did.
Share it on my Facebook network. I have to share it. With my Facebook friends. It's very important to me.
Yeah, gotta get everybody over here. This is maybe gonna be the one to like that flips us from sort of playing around on this idea to being ready for a community to start to build.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we're still going to be in prioritizing builds over community for a while yet. But,
yeah.
But
these introduction materials are definitely going to help.
Yeah, and I definitely hope we can build sort of like an initial kind of core community during this, during the next 4 months or something like that, where we're not necessarily ready for tons of people to come in, but hopefully a handful of people will get
a few excited folks. Yeah.
Did you already send the tweet?
I did.
Where is it?
Tweet is out.
Doesn't look like it cross-posted to Facebook. What the heck? Let me check. The tweet is indeed there. What's going on? My computer is pretty displeased with me right now.
Chugging along.
I'm not designed for this.
Yeah, I can go over and look at Facebook.
Hi, dog. Yep, there's the tweet from minutes ago. Facebook is still reloading itself. It's possible it just takes a second, but it shouldn't take 4 minutes. Before it was doing it almost instantly. Yeah, but the last post I see is January 19th, so that doesn't seem right.
All right. Pages. Yeah, I'm here on Facebook. I can get it.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on with that, unfortunately.
The match games. Yeah, okay. I'll just copy the tweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't work.
All right, that is published.
Okay. Well. Okay. I just.
Oh, did you do one too?
Anyway. No, I just did a personal post. I was just.
Okay.
I was just gonna share the one that we had, but it doesn't really matter. But that is annoying that FTTT didn't cross post that this time. Not sure what's going on.
Gotcha.
Oh well.
Cool. All right.
Good enough. All right. So let's grab.
So yeah. Well, so we're today going to be working on materials for some presentations. Probably for 2 audiences today. What do you think? A contributor audience and a like a game component or game element contributor audience and a set match game system development audience?
Yeah, or just like a really general presentation for anyone who's interested in games to get them maybe interested in what we're doing, so they don't need to know anything about the technology or be interested in that. And then one for people that are already maybe a little interested or are somewhat of a captive audience for what we're doing on a baseline level to get them understanding what we're thinking for the architecture of the system. So that is a little bit more technical and the kind of thing that we'll need to share with Holochain people when they come on to try to explain what we're trying to do and explain how they might be able to help us.
Yeah. I think we definitely need something to introduce to Holochain people to help them get us
yeah
started with the technology so that we can jump right into how this might work on Holochain.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably want to share with the Holochain people the general one as well.
Yes. Yes.
But we'll want both for them, whereas for like most people may not want to actually look at the architecture one. So it's good if we can cut out that intro part and just use that on its own too.
Yep.
So
I think it makes sense. I think the general presentation is context for the development presentation.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we've got a beginning of here. And then if anybody, I'm sure there's nobody on the stream right now that was on the last stream, but if anybody happens to be, this thing that we were working on last time is definitely relevant for this chart. So we'll probably be referencing and talking about that a bit. But for now, what we've got here is this little beginning of an outline that I started writing up. So yeah, why don't we start by I can kind of talk you through what I was thinking so far, Jesse, and then we can start talking about what we think.
Absolutely.
Cool. So presentation outline here. So I've been going kind of with this since I've been doing the DAOstack stuff and doing some slide decks for them. I've been going with this idea that one of the best ways to tell people about something new is instead of just starting with the thing, like instead of starting with we're set match games.
We have holographic consensus.
Right. Instead of starting with like we're set match games and we're cool, you start with here's a thing that you like already know. Like we all know that this is a thing that's true about the world. And so that's so basically you say like here's this new thing that's true, that's changed, that's a big idea that you probably would agree with, and then here's kind of a logical next step from that, and look, we're doing that next step, and so that's what I've tried to do here, where the big idea is that hey, if you look around at what's been happening in game development the past couple decades, you'll notice that a bunch of the biggest games in the world were sort of designed by accident by communities, by mod communities inside of other games, so like the Source 2 engine that Valve made has led to Team Fortress and Counter-Strike, and the Warcraft 3 map maker led to Dota, and that led to League of Legends. And then Arma 3 led to DayZ and all these Battle Royale games. And these are all gigantic. I mean, those are basically the three biggest game types in the world right now, right? At least for multiplayer games. This doesn't maybe apply as much to single player.
It would be really interesting to actually go look up those stats. Like, what kind of Twitch viewership is there for community designed, games that started, that can be traced back to a community design. Versus not. My guess is it's in the 90% community originated.
I think it totally dominates multiplayer games. I think the exception is we really don't see very many community-made single-player games that are hugely successful. There definitely are a few, but they're not really community-made. They're like auteur games, like Undertale or something like that, where it's obviously a modest scope because it's only one person, or Cave Story, but it ends up sort of being a cult hit. But for the most part, the most popular single-player games are still things like Dark Souls, where it's like takes a whole studio to make a game like that.
Right.
So maybe we'll get there eventually too. That you can take a community approach to that, but I think this is an easier place to start in terms of explaining it. So we start by pointing that out, kind of citing some examples so that people will know what we're talking about. And then we say that basically that's awesome, but in none of these examples, like there's this problem, and none of these examples have really properly rewarded the people that have come up with these mods and contributed to them, and they haven't made real gameplay modular. So you'll have a system where community members can upload their own skins and then sell them
Yep.
and get paid for the skins, but they're not really changing anything real about the game, right?
Right.
So nobody's doing both of those things. A system where the community can just create mods, and then them getting rewarded and compensated is really integrated into the system properly. That, as far as I know, that just doesn't exist anywhere.
Right.
And so what we're imagining is a platform that does do those things, that rewards
Yep.
players or creators for making successful mods, and then helps players find the best mods for them to play with.
Right.
Change that. And that if
Right.
we
That
made a system
that incentivizes creators to contribute successful ideas.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that if we made a
To
platform
scale
like
this
that,
big idea. Yeah.
yeah, if we made a platform like that, it could lead to, it could end up with some amazing stuff. You could end up with really infinite variety. You could play the same game a new way every single day. Also, multiple games, of course, and also more optimal balancing of the games, because people would constantly be able to switch to a version that they felt was more fun, where the balance was in a better spot for them.
This is an interesting point. All of these games are competitive.
Yes.
The evidence have all been, like, the competitive games have all been the best. I mean, the best multiplayer games all seem to also be competitive. Like, multiplayer and competitive kind of go together.
Yeah.
But, like, multiplayer co-op hasn't had this happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't actually.
MMOs haven't had this happen.
Yeah, MMOs. That's a good point. I mean, I think the general feeling people have is that MMOs have taken more of a backseat in the past decade or so. Of course, who knows whether that
is that because of this?
Yeah, maybe it's because of this. Maybe it's some other reason. Maybe they'll come back once some design leap forward happens.
Once someone makes a moddable MMO. I mean, that's tough.
Right,
but
yeah, I mean, I think there are all sorts of types of multiplayer games that haven't really broken through yet, right? Because you've seen these glimpses of them, like Journey, which is a multiplayer game that is cooperative, but in a very different way than people normally think. Or Dark Souls is a good example, right? Where they incorporated more than they took like a single player game and made it multiplayer in this way that still retains the essence of the single player system, but the multiplayer doesn't feel like a tacked on afterthought,
Sure.
So I don't know. Maybe this will eventually lead to new versions. Maybe we'll see some new genres, right? I mean, that would kind of be the hope eventually, because that's what we've seen in the past, right? All those games were new genres. Counter-Strike is not exactly a new genre, but definitely a totally new game type. And Battle Royale and MOBAs are both basically new genres that came out of this.
When Counter-Strike came out, it felt like a new genre.
Right.
In the same way that Battle Royale felt like a new genre.
Yeah. Right, because they're
all first-person shooters, but the sort of setup is very new.
Yeah, the format's really
different. It's a brand new feel. I mean, MOBAs are sort of real-time strategy games, but in a very, very modified format.
Yeah. Exactly.
What I notice is missing from this list is card games, collectible card games.
Right.
There hasn't been a Hearthstone. A community modded Hearthstone.
Right. Of course, there is a really good example, and there are lots of good examples in card games, but they are mostly in the real life versions of the card games. Right. When you and your friends sit down to play Magic, you might come up with your own little rules, right? Or your own totally new game modes. But often, I think playgroups will come up with their own little rules, like no counterspells.
Yeah, but also like their own balancing, first of all, but then also their own games, like Commander.
Right. I think that happens all the time in Magic, but we can't look at it from a bird's eye view.
Right.
And also, of course, there's definitely no structure built into Magic that rewards people for doing that or helps those game modes spread.
Totally.
They do spread sometimes, but they kind of have to overcome a lot of barriers to do that. It's not built to help that happen.
And the difficulty of format balancing, I think, is one of those.
Right. Yeah. Format balancing is something that I think is just really difficult to do for a centralized group because they're supposed to take in this huge amount of information. How fun were all the games that everyone played? And what are the 6 changes we can change to make it better? It's like, that's a pretty hard problem. So that's the vision, right? A platform that does solve that problem and then creates this amazing new thing. And that's what we're trying to do. Set Match Games is trying to build a platform that fully embraces that community-generated approach, including the game design and balance and art assets and also profit sharing for all those people that are designing all those things. And so we are going to start with
creating market incentives for this kind of contribution that has been shown to be so powerful.
Right, and you don't even have to only think of it as an economic, like a coldly economic thing. Like it's more than just you might get paid if lots of people use your card. It's also like you could become a known creator that has your own sort of community of people that are interested in what you create. It can be more qualitatively positive things too, and it probably will.
You get credit.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna start with card games because that's the simplest to execute. But we definitely hope that eventually the same system can support really all types of games. And honestly, who knows eventually? But we're definitely going to start with card games.
Yep.
And so that was my thought for this initial part of the presentation, where we're just trying to introduce people to the problem we're trying to solve and the general approach and why they might be excited about it. It's very similar to the blurb that I wrote up, just trying to sort of expand it a bit.
I think that's absolutely right.
And then the architecture part is definitely something we'll have more to talk about, I think, because there's some things that I probably have wrong on here or that you would want to say differently and stuff like that. But and there's also more than one way to put it together. So so what I've got here is I tried to make some different subheadings within architecture. One of them is the Set Match Games DAO. One of them is games. One of them is elements. And then the last one is curation market. There are definitely other ways to break this down, but it seemed to make sense to me.
Yeah.
Where Set Match Games DAO, the idea is this: it has the function of making any necessary system-wide rules. So rules that everything in the system needs to follow. Things we discussed were like a shell client that basically anytime you're running the game, it's somehow inside of a relatively simple shell that every client in the system would use. And that would be helpful if there were any universal things that we wanted to be true about the clients. And also any submission rules. So if you're creating new element and there's some rules that all elements need to follow, for example, that every element is going to get created for itself a curved bond and a DAO connected to that curved bond, then this would be a way where you submit your thing and then the Set Match Games DAO application that it's running will automatically deploy those contracts for you, that kind of thing. And then another function that we were thinking it would have would be it would resolve disputes. So if somebody says, this is my licensing rules, and they think someone else is breaking those, they might submit a proposal to the DAO saying, these people broke this rule and, we should invoke punishment X or whatever. And then the DAO could decide whether or not that was fair.
I think the DAO, especially the Set Match Games DAO, needs a lot of context before its purpose makes any sense.
Yeah. So it's possible this shouldn't be first.
I would put that at the very bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we should. It's tricky. We'll look through it and think about it, because there are definitely some arguments I think that it should go closer to the beginning as well, because in some ways it's a clear thing. It's like, okay, it's set match games. What's set match games? Well, kind of in one sense, it's this DAO that just makes rules for the whole system. And what is that system?
Sure.
Here it is. So, but
yeah, understanding why the system would even need rules.
Yeah.
Depends on the fact that it has a curation market.
Right.
And that it does rely on licensing.
Yeah. Right. So, and then the other important piece of the Set Match Games DAO is that the idea is that the members of the DAO, the people that are able to contribute to making decisions, are whatever relevant stakeholders in the system. So people that invest, people that play, people that create things, people that help build the software for the Set Match Games DAO. And okay, so then games.
Yeah, I think games is a clear, like, there's no questions. Like, why do you have games?
Right. It's like, so what we're talking about here is like games as in like you play a game with another person.
Right.
And so when you do that, your game is made up of what we're calling elements. Right. And they kind of fall into these 4 categories of modes, components, rules / clients, which are in a lot of ways married, but can sometimes be a bit separate. But I think we're kind of still counting them as the same thing. And formats.
Yeah. I think rules can only be implemented as clients.
Right. And we may see some clients that try to separate their rules a lot so that it's easier for players to add things in, but ultimately they probably need to be together.
That have very general rules that sort of treat what one might think of as game rules as actually a component.
Right. Yeah, and that's, we'll see how that actually plays out, but
right.
But the basic concept here I think is pretty clear and pretty strong. And then the other note about game results or games is this idea of how we're managing the results in a decentralized way. Right. So this is not a thing I have a clear idea in my head for, because one of the questions is what needs to be, a global consensus, and what is okay being lots of little local consensus.
Right. I think that's an open question, and I think the experts will help us with that.
Yeah. So things we do know is that to some extent, when I play a game with Jesse and we're both running a client, our clients will in some way confirm that they think the other person is playing fair.
Right.
And that somehow the results of that game will go into the larger system in some way,
right?
In a hopefully secure way,
right?
And that'll use maybe stuff from distributed hash table protocols, maybe stuff from blockchain protocols. We're not sure exactly what the breakdown is there, because there's some merits to both. But that's games, and then so going into elements a bit. Elements are these things we just talked about. They are submitted by individual creators, so you can submit an element you made. Each element comes with a way to invest in that element. Probably the default way will be a curved bond, but in theory you could do it in other ways. You could just have a token that's not on a curved bond if you wanted. And just sold and bought on a market. That's not automatic, but makes probably sense to have an automated system like a curved bond by default. And we also have talked about the idea that people who play with an element, who play games using it, should probably earn some of that investment. Because those people are pretty meaningful stakeholders in keeping that element fun. We don't want the incentives to be how can I make this element make the most money. We want them to basically be how can I make this element be the most fun for people. And to me, that's a good argument for why you should get some stakeholders in there that are not purely motivated by profit.
Yeah, I think this is a much more open question than the fact that each element comes with an investment mechanism.
Yeah, and it's also trickier. It's also harder to execute this. It's really easy
right, and adds complexity to the system. And might be like if we just want to make the element DAOs give them power to do kind of whatever they want with their elements.
Yeah.
This will come in there.
Totally could be. Yeah. Basically,
So I think it's worth mentioning. I think it's worth mentioning here, but not in such confident terms. Like
maybe not. Yeah.
Like maintain potential for players to earn investment through play.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, to me, at least right now, I think this is a pretty important thing, and that I think we should probably try to make it the default. I don't want to force people to do this, but I think that setting the defaults is a powerful way of
of course it is.
Setting the starting point, and a lot of people are going to just go with the default starting point because they don't have a reason to change it.
Right.
And yeah, I do
think that it's nudge.
Important. So we'll talk about it more, I'm sure. Depending on how difficult depending on how hard it would be to put it in, we totally might not put it in at the beginning. But eventually, at least right now, I would argue we should try to put it in as default. And then...
And I will say, I think the important thing about the investment mechanism isn't necessarily that it's an investment mechanism, but that it's a curation market.
Right. So that's the next section here. But yeah, so the data about the investment here is
an investment mechanism, I think, in order to participate in the curation market.
Right. Yeah. Sure, I can add that here. In order to provide info to yeah, and then another important thing connected to the investment mechanism is that each element is also going to come with a boilerplate set of DAO contracts, which basically mean that all the stakeholders of that element have the ability to decide the element's licensing rules, and you do other things that are, they could, of course, do other things with that DAO. They could sort of do anything with it. But again, sort of the default and probably easiest thing for them to do is just decide what the licensing rules for that element should be. And in some cases, that's going to be more complicated than others. A lot of the time, it's probably not going to be complicated at all. Moving on to the curation market. Oh, and I guess an important idea about the licensing rules is that in a lot of cases, that's where the revenue stream is. So if you want to be able to make money off of a popular element, then that's going to have to be in the licensing rules. Like you saying, in order to do this using this element, you must spend money in the following way.
Right.
So that's where that's going to come in a lot.
These are the uses we're allowing.
Right. Right, and then the last one we haven't talked about here, the curation market. So it is a market, so anyone can invest into elements or sell their investments. If most things are on a curved bond, then that stuff you won't actually be buying or selling to other people. You'll just be buying or selling back to the curves. But it's still it still basically feels like a market where you got all these different things you can buy or sell. Like we said, owning an investment gives you reputation in that element's DAO. There's a lot of different ways that mechanism could work. I don't think we need to decide which one is best right now. And then the data about those elements, including the investment activity and also the playing activity, like what's the element that wins the most games or gets played in the most games, can be sorted in whatever kind of way it's possible to sort it in order to help people find the best ways for them to play.
We want to set up mechanisms that produce market mechanisms that produce valuable data about the elements.
Right. Yeah, in a lot of ways, that's sort of the goal of, well, I guess the investment stuff has two goals. One is to make it possible for the creators and stakeholders in things to make money. And the other one is to help people play, have more fun, basically.
To curate the elements. Yeah.
Right. To help people find the elements that they're going to have the most fun with.
Yep.
And yeah, so those are kind of the pieces of the thing. So you've got games that you're playing using elements, people creating and investing in elements in order to help people make money off of making them, and in order to curate the elements according to the best ways of having a good time for different types of players.
Yeah.
And kind of the basic rules for that system, like what are the defaults, what are if the system's going to be taxed in any way in order to fund infrastructure. Those things can get decided by the Set Match Games DAO, which will have in it stakeholders from the entire system.
Right. So, once we mentioned that each element will be associated with a DAO, then we have the context to talk about the Set Match Games DAO, sort of creating and overseeing system-wide rules about what element DAOs can do.
Yeah. Elements are submitted by creators and can be invested in for purposes of one, making creators or rewarding creators, and two, creating elements so people can have more fun. And then the Set Match Games DAO is responsible for global rules and is made up of stakeholders from the entire system. Something like that is something like that is an okay summary of the architecture.
Yeah, I think so. So not only elements are submitted by creators and can be invested in for the purpose of blah, 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 blah. The other thing that elements have, they can be invested in and then rewarding creators, curating elements.
Right. I guess we should also say anyone invested in an element as part of a DAO that controls that element, or something like that.
Yeah, and I think the sort of key important thing about the DAO is that there need to be like reasons for individual investments to expect to have some return. So as part of a DAO that controls the sort of business of that element, the financial agreement of the element.
Right. A DAO that sets rules for that invested in an element as part of DAO.
Yeah.
It's rules for that element. And I mean, the implication here is that the DAO is motivated to help the element succeed.
I think it's the DAO is motivated to cause the element to earn.
Right. But we want that to mean the same thing.
Right. Well, right. But I think in this sentence, we need to really focus on the perspective of the individual investor. Like, why did they invest in this? Why do they want control? Why is it good for them to have control over the licensing? Is so that they have control over how that element makes money.
Well, yes, but I think that this is related to the issue of, by default, giving people reputation in an element's DAO, in exchange for playing with the element. That, like, I think we also want people in those DAOs who are motivated more by, this is an element I play with and I have fun with it, and this is what I think would make it more fun. You know, like, I think that we don't need exclusively that. Like, it's a lot of the time, an element being more fun is the main thing that will lead to it making more money, right? A lot of the time.
Well, right.
But
right,
I think there's enough of a blind spot there that we want some people in there who are invested because they play with the element a lot, and they want it to work better for that purpose too. I think we want some different types of stakeholders to try to more accurately get the DAOs to be motivated to make the elements more successful game elements and not purely more profitable.
Right. But the function of a curation market is to use market forces for curation. And market forces depend on return on investment. And that's where the licensing is what provides that feature to
but there will be people participating in the market who are just simply not motivated by profit. Like, probably a lot of people.
That's the case in all markets.
I mean, there will be people that are just buying things because they want to use them, right?
Right, and that's the case in all markets, but that's not the sort of purpose of the curation market. So, I think
the
focusing
purpose of the
on
curation market also isn't to make people money; it's to curate.
No, it's to use people's desire to make money for curation.
Right, but I think it's using people's desire to have fun in basically the same way.
Yeah, I might not call that a market.
Well, it is in the sense that if I want to have a good time and I need to buy these 10 elements in order to do what I want, then my desire to have fun is acting very similarly than, Moneybags' desire to make money.
Oh, of course, but the fact that you have to buy these 10 things is because of the market side of it, that the DAO that controls those elements have said people have to buy them to use them.
Right. Yeah. It's presumably the DAOs for those elements have decided we want our element to make a little bit of money, so we're going to set this scheme to help that happen.
And we believe that our profits will be maximized if it's this price, and if it's this rule, if it's
right.
We believe that there isn't broad appeal for this element, but there is narrow, deep appeal. So it's expensive because we need a higher.
Like, we could put it this way: we expect. You could break up people's behavior into 3 categories: investors, creators, and players.
Yep.
And the overall goal of Set Match Games is to create games that are positive experiences that are fun, that people want to play, that are fun, right? But in order to do that, we're depending on creators and investors trying to maximize the amount of money they can make. And players trying to maximize the amount of fun they can have.
Yep. Aligning the fun with the investment.
Right. So that basically creators and investors are saying, if you want us to make fun stuff, you need to pay us. And players are saying, if you want us to pay you, you have to make fun stuff.
Right.
And so we're depending on that, the balance of those two.
That's a market.
Right. So, I mean, that's why it's important to make sure that we're including both of those factors in where we can.
So, you have that too, curating elements so people can have more fun.
Yeah.
Anyone who invested in an element is part of a DAO. So, right, I think the DAO and the licensing aren't necessarily required for the fun part. The DAO and the licensing are there to bring in the investment part.
Yeah, it's possible that there's enough influence just from the market. The idea that the people paying are the people that are asking to have fun, that's enough of an influence from them. The only thing that makes me wonder about that is just when you look at markets that exist now, that's how most of them work, and you do see a pretty high level of predatory behavior on the part of
totally
creators
totally
and investors.
I think part of what I think we're not gonna solve that problem.
No, we're not yet. But this is the conversation that leads to what the Set Match Games DAO might set as the default settings for things, right? It's like,
sure,
these are the kinds of discussions that we'll have, I think.
Yeah, and I think we should rely on the people doing curation market research and trust their research,
and also just seeing how the system behaves in practice, and then adjusting.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Yeah,
totally.
So.
But the reason we're including the curation market in our architecture is to get that financial incentive into the system.
Right, is because we do acknowledge that it's super important for creators to be paid and investors
and efficient and scalable.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Help the element make money for creators and investors.
Yeah. Yep.
And an element that's part of a DAO that sets the rules for that element in order money for creators and investors.
Yeah.
And to which should be aligned with making the element fun. I think it's fair.
Right. And so this is maybe also a good reason why the Set Match Games like global DAO is there for oversight, just like market oversight.
Right. It's a good example, right? Because if I made goblin, like greedy goblin elements, and it's very possible that the optimal strategy for me to make money is to do something really, really stupid with my element, right? Like do something like every 100 greedy goblins you buy is actually an ultra greedy goblin, which is totally overpowered.
Sure.
And it gets people to just buy tons and tons of greedy goblins because it turns out that ultra greedy goblin is the best thing in the game and the only.
I feel like our system solves that. I think like the fact that an element has to get into a
format,
and for that format to also be curated.
Right. But I guess like we have multiple checks for a strategy like that, which is nice. Which is nice.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of those strategies will get solved because people will decide I don't want to play in a format where I have to spend that much money. It's dumb.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Right.
But even if you end up with a system where the format and the client and the elements are all pushing some kind of collusion-y money-making strategy. The DAO, it's the main DAO, the Set Match Games DAO, will have a pretty strong incentive to look out for the fun of the entire system.
Right? That's the theory of Bitcoin.
Right.
We're kind of depending on that theory being correct.
Right. Well, and it's also the theory of like Bitcoin has no problem, sucking up the world's electricity. It doesn't care about that. But the world at large does care. And in some ways, it's the responsibility of the world at large to say, like, hey, Bitcoin, you need to have a more responsible energy policy, or we're going to stop using you. Right.
Right. That's not. Yeah. that's above my pay grade.
Right.
And above and outside of the scope of set match games.
Well, I'm saying like that's somewhat similar to the set match games DAO saying to some format like, okay, we're gonna make it not allowed to adopt this particular abusive strategy because we can see that Gestalt it's harming the ecosystem even though it's helping that individual format.
Right, and we can see like this Elements DAO has figured out a Ponzi scheme that is tricking people and is getting into systems and is harmful. So we are going to, and there is this DAO in the system that has the capability of overriding the Elements DAO's decisions.
Right, and that's why it's key that the decision-making power in the set match games DAO should be representative of everyone in the system.
Yes.
That's why it's important that it be a DAO.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, this is the problem of externalities. Like, if the whole set match games DAO system starts being so successful that people are completely addicted to video games and they stop paying attention to their families, the set match games DAO will have no problem with that. It'll think it's great. And that'll be a problem that like the rest of the world should really try to solve, but that's not something we should be trying to design the set match games DAO to solve because it's just an externality. Like you can't, it's too much outside the system for it to work.
Yeah. I think personally, both of us, if we notice that happening, we will really try hard to find ways to keep that from happening.
Right, and the way to keep that from happening would be maybe just trying to convince the community. Which I think is totally valid, and that's what we see in things like Bitcoin, right? You see like people who are part of Bitcoin who are saying like, hey, we should, make it more efficient electricity use, not because it'll be more profitable for us, but just because that's the right thing to do. And hey guys, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think we've got that.
Yeah.
Well situated. But yeah, the interaction, I think our theory is that the interaction of all of these curation markets and the sort of orientation of all of the elements to each other will create a synergy between, will align the incentives, the financial incentives with the having fun incentives. I think that's our theory.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate. It still depends on the ultimate assumption that if the set match games ecosystem is engaging more people and people are spending more time doing things on it, then that means that it's having a more positive impact for them. And obviously, if you look around, there are examples where that's less true or more true, but generally, like this is now a discussion for like philosophers of economics or something.
Yeah. Well, and researchers of curation markets, which, we're joining those ranks.
Right. So, we are still, I think, taking that same assumption, and I think that's fine.
Yep. Totally.
But cool, yeah. I feel like this is a pretty good short summary, and then we can try to just, neaten these up as we go.
Right.
Is this enough information? I mean, so the only thing I had after this was just a quick little note on development where I say, like, it's an open source project, and that currently our sort of plan is it's just Ezra and Jesse, and we're just taking these very first steps. Then we're going to recruit help from these other projects to progress towards something that's actually minimally viable. And then we'll probably try to launch the DAO to start formalizing and rewarding people who want to contribute.
Right.
We may not be able to reward them with money yet, but if they believe in the system, we can at least reward them with reputation that will eventually be valuable, right?
Well, right. That will theoretically, they will be able to join. We're not putting money into this system ourselves unless we decide see things that we believe personally are worth investing in.
Right, like we won't be able to create people,
an engine,
but,
that allows people to participate.
Having the DAO will at least let us like formalize those community contributions in some way.
And we'll be asking for help from the DAO experts.
Right. Yeah.
On that, the expert community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. Yeah, I'm not so sure about Shell Client actually under the Set Match Games DAO.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we need to put this.
Maybe I think that might be more specific and yeah. So I think let's see the functions of that DAO are to sort of like honestly like global economic oversight.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's what I meant by here, but we could just write that instead. Yeah, I'm gonna write system-wide instead of global.
System-wide, yeah. System-wide economic oversight of the element DAOs. Yeah. Right, like things like a design submission rules, but also codes of conduct, the banning of hate speech in elements, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it'll be both a signaling DAO. In other words, it will signal its rules. It'll signal the code of conduct. It'll signal the sort of rules of participation, and then also we'll be able to like remove elements that the DAO agrees breaks those signals, breaks those rules.
Right. Yeah. Like removing or punishing, I should say, like punishing bad actors, basically.
Bad actors, yep. By slashing stake, by slashing reputation.
Slashing stake, reputation. Yeah, or even just kicking things out of the system, right? I mean.
Right. And also removing elements, just like deleting stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, or you could even call this.
If there's an element that
you could call it like banning an element.
Banning elements, yeah, sure.
Especially if you wanted, if there was some, right? Like if it was a hate speech thing, you might just take the exact phrase that you were kicking out, and instead of just deleting that element, you'd actually add a rule that said elements like this can't be used, so that you can't just add another element that just uses the same thing.
That's a good question for the future.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do with something with hate speech in it? Do we like leave it there but say this is bad?
Yeah.
Don't use it, or do we like completely disallow it from our contracts and delete that data and like remove it from the chain, because Ethereum does have that capability to remove the data from the chain.
Yeah.
And I think once we get to that point, the answer will be clear.
Yeah, and that's obviously also something that can just be decided on the fly by the DAO. There might be situations where you want to do one and one where you want to do the other.
Right. As long as that DAO's contracts. Oh, and I guess with the DAOstack DAO, we're able to add schemes that can give it more.
That's coming with the next release, so that's going to be a reality very soon.
The next release of Alchemy?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, like Genesis can now do it.
Right. You'd have to command line it, I think. But
Yep. You just have to send those transactions, but like we could figure that out. I think also, I would that show up as like one of those no title proposals? Probably.
It might, yeah. The next version of Alchemy is just going to have different. That makes it hard. Yeah, it's just going to have different categories of proposals. So it's going to show you the current ones that Alchemy shows are actually called contribution reward proposals. So like, I'm going to do something, give me a reward. And then there are these other ones like scheme changes, or it's just you can do arbitrary stuff. You can just do arbitrary anything you can do on Ethereum. You can submit a proposal for.
Yep.
That's pretty confusing.
So anyway, that we'll be able to use that for the punishing bad actors part. Like if the system-wide DAO doesn't have the capability to do that, the system-wide DAO can vote to give itself the capability to do that, and then vote to do it.
Right.
Now, theoretically, is there a danger here of the element DAOs voting to give themselves the capability to do it and then do it?
Yeah, so I think that this is the kind of thing that we need to think a bit about up front.
And get the help of DAOstack if we can get it.
Right. So like the system has to be permissioned to some extent, right? Where the Set Match Games DAO is able to make changes to other things that cannot then make changes to it.
Yeah, right. One way.
Which should be possible. But
yeah, we'll definitely need that. But so you want to move on to the structure of the Set Match Games DAO?
Yeah.
So there's community members. Stakeholders get reputation.
Right, which is pretty undefined here because that could really mean lots of different groups of people, right?
Right. So we'll have to come up with some means of identifying stakeholders, and the DAO will probably have the capability of changing that definition.
And at the very beginning here, like before we have much of a system, I think it'll really make sense for us to have a system where people can just contribute to the building of the system, and we can give them some reputation in the DAO.
And earn reputation. Yeah, probably like Genesis works now. Like,
right.
Hey, I build this part, and you give me this for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or just like, here's this new thing I built.
Also, it might make sense for investors in Elements to gain some sort of proportion of reputation in the full DAO. So like,
right, yeah.
The Set Match Games DAO is sort of the developers of Set Match Games, but also the contributors and investors in the Elements.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you really want this stakeholder group to be is you want it to be representative of all the stakeholders in the whole system, which to get that exactly right is basically that's just a
totally we can approximate it.
But we want to get it close enough to hopefully balance all the preferences about right, So in theory, anybody who's a stakeholder in any of the Element DAOs should probably get a little bit of reputation in the main DAO. I don't know if we want to literally do it that way. We certainly could, I think.
I think
it could just be a
feels like a good start to me.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty easy to just do a reputation sharing scheme there, right? Like, so if you own 0.5% of the reputation of an Element DAO, and that Element DAO represents 1% of the overall activity of the system through some measurement, then maybe your 0.5% is 0.5% of 1% of the counts for that much percentage of the main DAO or something like that.
Yeah. Also playing games and submitting game results could earn you small amounts of rep over time. I think this looks good. There's some there's some things that we're much more confident we know the structure of than others.
Yeah.
What do you think about really when we really like going ahead and trying to make a slide deck and keeping in that slide deck the things that we are really confident in at this point, or making it clear which is which. Like,
yeah,
for this thing, this is the part we're really confident in that we need, and these are some things that we could do, but like these are some potential things, but we're not sure that that's how it'll happen.
Yeah, I think we should clarify that in the slide deck, and generally we can just include the things that we're confident about, but I think it's also okay to have in the deck some things that just say like, we don't know how we're going to do this yet, or we don't know if this is the right way to do it.
Totally. Yeah.
But generally, it's not super useful to do too much of that, of course.
No, for sure.
Too much of that, then it just you're not really telling anybody anything.
Right.
But one thing that I think would be helpful for us to try to get our thoughts together a little bit more, even though we don't know how it's going to work, we could maybe describe clearer what we think is needed for the security stuff. Like what are the properties of a good solution for what we need
of a secure game result? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I think a hash chain of game actions, a hash chain of player actions, sort of and let's call it a mutually signed hash chain of game actions.
Yeah, mutually signed by the players in that game.
Yeah, a hash chain, right, mutually signed by each player. Yep. Right.
Right, and that's like what a game result is.
Yeah.
And so that part, I think, is fairly defined, right? So it's like, I'm playing a game with you. We're running programs that sign each action in the game, and then at the end, they sign that chain of hashes, which confirms the whole chain.
Right. And confirming the whole chain means confirming that each of those actions follows the game protocol.
Right. So this is where my
understanding
kind of starts to break down.
So then you have a distributed hash table where people are all sort of confirming that the game protocol was followed.
Yeah.
And only saving results that follow the game protocol. And so but the assumption that the distributed hash table is sort of majority fair, it wouldn't propagate.
Right. So that.
I think what actually happens is that the hash table is forked.
Yeah.
And there's a hash table of people propagating the bad result, and everyone else who's not propagating that bad result takes them out of their member list. And so you end up with two DHTs, one with the bad result, one that accepts the bad result and one that doesn't.
So if you have one of these game results, right, and you end up with like just a long string at the end, basically, that's supposed to confirm the game result. And it was played between, Bob and Alice.
Yep.
And so then can Charlie look at that hash? What information can Charlie get from that hash?
It depends. If you're looking at just the hash of that, like the final hash in that chain.
Yeah.
Charlie can't know anything about the game.
Right.
If Charlie does find the full chain, Charlie can verify that hash was made from that chain.
Right. Okay.
So that's a little bit like a Merkle root.
Yeah.
right? We could distribute Merkle roots, and anybody could say, hey, my game was in this, and anybody else could verify that they were correct.
Yeah.
But really, yeah, I think you distribute the whole chain. I mean, all of the results, the whole game, and then people validate that game was correct and played and save it and hold it.
Right, and then
and when people ask for that game result, they provide it. I mean, and that's part of what it means to be a part of the distributed hash table. So, maybe everyone holds a copy of the Merkle root of all of the games, and then anybody can validate that a game is in the chain, or a game is in the hash table.
Yeah.
By asking the people responsible for holding the actual game result, like the full signed hash chain of game actions.
Right. So how would that work for, like, let's say I wanted a game mode where I really needed to know, there really needs to be a global consensus about all the games, right? Like a tournament, right?
Right.
Or like a very serious ladder that has some big prizes.
Right.
Like, it's not okay in that system for two people to have played a game that just like is still sitting on their personal hashes that hasn't gotten gossiped out to anybody else yet, just because of the way the locations or something like that. So does a distributed hash table?
I think the tournament organizer would run a. Oh, I have an error on the stream here. I'm going to refresh my Twitch dashboard. Yeah, okay, it's live. I think that was just an error on my end. So yeah, I think the tournament organizer would run a mode client on would run a hash table node, and they would sort of participate in gossiping around that the game results. And of course, they would be responsible for some portion of the game results, but they would also have access to what the hash table says the other game results are, and they would go through and ask for all of them, and they would be delivered all of them, at the moment when they update their ranking or whatever. They would then sort of publish that externally, right? And they could also publish a proof, being a Merkle root that any other node on the DHT could validate. Is like they could publish the proofs that each of these games are in this Merkle root, along with all of the results, and so everybody could validate it that way,
right?
If they wanted to.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah, I'm just wondering. Like, I'm now starting to wonder how useful the gossip protocol is. Like, how often will it be okay for lots of people to have different versions of the hash table, or will people really want to know, what their global standing is a lot of the time? And
yeah, so the hash table is eventually consistent.
Right, eventually.
Well, right, and any eventual consistency is kind of the name of the game. any sharded database is also eventually consistent. So it's in the same way that Twitter is eventually consistent. Facebook is eventually consistent.
Yeah.
Google search results are eventually consistent. So, my understanding is that distributed hash tables have had enough research done that they're pretty fast. And that they're very efficient at becoming consistent quick enough for people to like see the result of their game quickly.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely stuff that's beyond my intuitive knowledge. So this is the stuff we need help with for sure.
Yeah, right, because you're trying to understand the hash table, and it's like, okay, so not everybody has everything at the same time. Interesting.
Right.
But
yeah, because like
but computers are so fast.
Yeah.
When we're interacting, it still looks a whole lot like everybody has everything.
Right. Like and it's okay for not everybody to have everything at the same. Like that's normal and okay, and it sort of depends on the time scale and also what you're doing, and yeah, it's just
that's the world we've been living in for a long time.
Yeah, and it's also like it seems like one of the key things is that it you want a lot of different you can connect people according to which hash table group sort of they want to be in at the time, right? So it's like if you're playing a certain mode, it seems easier to connect all the people playing that mode specifically and do that in a dynamic way for all the different modes and game clients that are being used. It seems easier to do that with a distributed hash table system than with like a state channel system, for example.
Yeah, so the distributed hash table is just a state maintenance system. So it's like the hard drive.
Right. Yeah.
It's a distribution of the hard drive.
Yeah.
So we could run a state channel system on that. But yes, my understanding of Holochain is that they've added a cryptographic proof layer that allows a DHT to run amongst in a trustless environment.
Right. Yeah. I guess I mean like it would be easier to what happened? Can you
I can.
Okay, good. Cool. Okay, good. I didn't totally abandon you then. No, it's okay. You can just take him out. He doesn't really need his coat. Okay. Anyway. Right. So what I was saying was, it seems easier to do this with Holochain than it would be to try to do that all on. Like it seemed like the other alternative would do something like Polkadot and make like a ton of different blockchains or something like that.
Right. No, I think Holochain is very well suited for this.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully I will continue to understand this better. But
yeah, same here. I mean,
Holochain is difficult for sure. It seems.
Yeah.
It definitely. I mean, trying to read their white paper was way harder than trying to read a lot of the blockchain white papers. Although I will say the Ethereum paper is also extremely hard to read for someone who's not a computer scientist.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we need their help.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think I have a. But that seems like something that we shouldn't. I'm not even sure what I would say about that in the presentation because I'm so not clear on.
Yeah, I think we're at the level. The presentation can be at the level above that. It's like we can just say we need to store game results in a distributed way and securely, right?
Yeah.
And part of the development of this that's ongoing and gonna be happening is to figure out how to do that. But the system depends on the security of game results. We need to store game results. Game results need to be reliable.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. And here are some ideas that we have about ways to do that.
Right.
Yeah. In the same way that like elements need to be, the real thing about elements is that anyone can submit one and that they are defined as metadata.
Yeah.
and that anybody can submit metadata, and that each submission has this curation market DAO license construct associated with it.
Yeah.
And then the curation market needs to be a curation market that curates these things.
Yeah. So these are like.
And I think, yeah, the only important thing about the curation market is that we get reliable curation. I mean, at a certain level, this system is nothing more than submission and curation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is all it is.
I mean, scalable is sort of globally scalable submission and
right.
curation.
And I mean, so what we're trying to do is create the right mechanisms for submission and curation that will actually trigger this pattern to be, basically we're trying to make the right catalyst for the reaction to happen, because in a sense the whole world is submission and curation, right? Like if you abstract things far enough, you can just look at everything and say, like, well, anybody can do anything, and then if they do something good, they'll get rewarded. Right.
Yeah.
Right, but it's hard to do things a lot of the time, and maybe we need to make stuff that will make it easier so that people can actually do these things we imagine. And so the question is, what's the right stuff for us to make that will?
Yeah, I would say that there is the whole world is submission and curation, but the curation part especially, there are reasons that it's unfocused, and focusing, like adding constraints to focus the energy of the submission and curation that does already exist in the world towards a specific goal is the job here.
Yeah.
Because markets are submission and curation. Like, I offer a product and service, and the world either pays me or they don't. But the curation is, there's no it's unstandardized. So if we create a standard for submission, which is this metadata format, and a standard for curation, which is the curation market.
And these are the things that have changed.
More interoperable, and clients can be written to actually read it. Like, we can't write a client right now to read the economic activity of the world.
Right. Like you can look at the history of humanity through this lens and say, well, it's always been the system of submission and curation. But what has changed is the tools that let people do those things. So it's been easier to submit a book once the printing press exists.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's easier to understand demand once the internet exists, and that would change what you might want to, so the curation is giving you new information, which changes what you might want to submit. And then previous submissions are changing what you have the ability to submit and things like that. So we're trying to take a step somewhere on that ladder or whatever.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I'm trying to just go through and kind of like bold the things that seem like the
parts that we know.
Points.
Yeah.
Like, the points where if I'm presenting this, these are the things that I want to be the biggest takeaway. Like if you just glance at it for a second, like that's what you see.
Yep.
Games made of elements.
Yeah, the system-wide economic oversight and the resolution of disputes. DAO is made up of set match games of stakeholders, right?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Yep, that makes sense. I think this the specific elements that we've come up with are really an important piece.
Yeah.
And these are the pieces that connect all the dots in a way that we believe are will drive the system.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, this feels about right. So it's like games are made up of elements, and their results are stored securely and decentrally.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that really a real word? I guess it is. It always sounds weird to me. Decentrally. We've got elements, which are submitted by individual creators and defined by metadata. They come with an investment mechanism and a DAO. And then a creation market, where anyone can invest into elements or sell their investments, and data about elements is sorted to help people, find what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then you got the Set Match Games DAO, which is responsible for system-wide economic oversight of all the element DAOs and resolves disputes, and it's made up of all the stakeholders of the system.
Stakeholders for the entire system, yeah. Yep.
That's pretty good, I think.
That's it.
Nice. Okay, so I should have a bunch of time to do this, maybe later today and definitely tomorrow, so I'll definitely... So what I'm thinking for like how it should look is we can make a slide deck, that's fine, but ideally we can make this in a version where we can just put it in different places, like, or put different pieces of it in different places, like the README on GitHub, maybe the website, things like that. So I'll try to come up with something that works for that. Obviously not going to do anything fancy, but I'll try to come up with something.
Yeah.
But, anything occur to you right away?
I think the first thing we want to do with it is invite someone from Holochain on stream.
Yeah.
And give them the presentation.
Right. Yeah.
Give them the presentation on stream, record it, and then discuss the possibilities with them.
Yeah.
Answer their questions, like sort of have a and then use that as a piece of material to point people to, like, here's where we talk about it with Holochain. They had some good questions. We had to actually explain it in a way that made sense to someone who's never heard about it. So if you're in that situation where you're someone who's never heard about it, you can go look at that and get an idea.
Right. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Right. Okay, so I can do that.
If you've got the deck made, let me know and I'll tell them we're ready.
Cool. Yeah. So then, so if we can do that, if we can do those two things, and it gets confirmed, then we should definitely try to advertise it to like the Holochain community and anyone else that we think would
absolutely
be into it. Because that's a stream where we actually want a few people to tune in.
Absolutely. Yes.
So assuming we can, assume I can get that done in the next day or so, and then they are down for that day, someone is down for that day, then we'll start sharing it. And we can talk about that once we get to that point, like who's going to share it where. But certainly the Holochain community, there's a couple Telegram groups that I'm pretty sure would be interested. I mean, you never know, but
yeah, totally. I think we should throw it out there. It also might be worth trying to schedule something with someone from DAOstack at this point too. I mean, there's no reason that we have to do Holochain first.
Totally. And then the other thing in that category of thing is curved bond stuff. I don't know if there are any projects that are really making infrastructure.
There are. I think it's more there's people who are working on it.
Right. I know there are people that have written about it. I don't know if anyone has like built stuff that we could just use.
Yeah. So they're using it in, I think the first big thing that is trying to do stuff with it is the meme market.
The OX one? Or
Yeah.
Meme Factory, I think.
Meme Factory, yeah, something like that. Yeah. And I don't think they're building a platform.
Yeah.
because this is, and that makes sense. This is like a library sort of component more than it is a platform sort of component.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's worth talking to someone involved in
these guys
involved in creation markets. Which guys? This. Oh yeah, Meme Factory. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I actually don't understand the concept that they have
of Meme Factory.
Yeah, is it just CryptoKitties or like?
I think it might even be less. I think it's literally we attach a curved bond. People submit memes and they get a curved bond for it.
Right. So what I don't understand is like I post a meme because people are gonna laugh. So like if I see a funny meme, I'm just gonna copy paste it. Like I don't care about if you own the token or whatever.
No, it's about the curation of the memes. I mean I think they are really saying like how powerful is this curved bond idea? Does it need anything else to work?
Yeah, well, I guess for me it seems like
is that it won't need anything else to work, and sort of speculation tied to people's sort of like, oh, I love this meme, I'll buy a little bit of it just because.
Yeah.
Because I want to participate.
Sort of makes sense.
I think they're testing whether or not that is enough to drive this curve bond market.
Yeah, I don't know if that totally will work, but
we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if. Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be good to know if they do have anything that we could learn from. I don't know if. Oh, here's a.
I'm sure they do. I mean, I'm sure their contract.
Let's check out their GitHub real quick.
Yeah, I'm sure we could learn from their contracts.
This is just District OX. This is 2 Meme Factory.
And then also maybe learn from their results. I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's worth trying to sending out a message to Simon De La Rue.
Right. Yeah. There's that other. What was that other guy's name? Wilson Lau, I think, was another guy.
Yeah. I think it might be worth sending out messages to just people writing in it.
Yeah, actually, Wilson Lau was the guy that I replied to with that idea about pasting boilerplate DAO contracts onto curved bonds, so that when you curved bondify something, you also automatically create a company that, is essentially now filled with stockholders.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's kind of what said. That's the idea of Starmatch Games.
Yeah, he might be into it. Yeah,
that would be great.
He was into the idea when I replied anyway. Although I don't think he actually did anything with it, but he expressed some interest.
But I mean, I think it's a much smaller ask to have somebody come and come on a stream and actually talk about their thing in front of an audience.
Yeah. So he definitely might be into it. Curious. Okay, so here's their little diagram here.
I'm watching a delayed version of it, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, you can check it out if you want to just bring it up.
Yeah.
Or I can where's?
Oh no, I'll go look at. This is the Meme Factory GitHub.
It's District OX/Meme Factory.
Cool. Yep. I see it.
I'm not seeing any curved bond stuff. I do see some stuff that looks like token curated registry stuff.
Meme token, Sol.
It looks like a token curated registry.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, although I guess you could do that with curved bonds, and maybe they're doing that with curved bonds. Maybe that's how the voting works. I don't know.
Meme auction.
Yeah.
Start price and price. So the auction, there's an auction for a meme.
God.
Start price equals start price, end price equals end price.
Using their DANK tokens, voters can privately signal their DANK balance. either in favor of or against the
Yeah. Yeah, maybe this is more complicated than I first understood, and it may have gotten more complicated since I first.
Yeah. It's sounding like token created registry stuff to me. Where people have to stake, put some stake behind whether they think something should belong on the list or not.
Yeah, registry entry. But they might be sorting the registry with curved bonds.
Right.
Let's do a search.
Yeah. Are you just searching the repo?
Yeah, searching the repo for bond, and it's not in there.
Oh, I'm gonna search for curved. Yeah, no. Okay, so I'm not sure if they are using it.
Yeah, the only curve is elliptic curve public numbers. Yeah. Okay.
But certainly, like reaching out to Simon, however you say his last name, or Wilson Lau, or some other just individual people we know are interested in the idea is better than nothing.
Right. I think that's worth it. I think that's worthwhile. Yeah, I feel like as much sort of co-promotion of these ideas that we can do with people who want their ideas out there and tested and understood, the better.
Yeah, okay, well that sounds good. So what should we do next right
now? Yeah, I think next we get the slide deck put together, sort of the simpler the better.
Yeah, I mean like right now.
What's that?
Like in 2 minutes, what should we do? Should we start working on that? Should we talk about
in 2 minutes? Yeah, why not?
Cool.
Yeah, we've got another 50 minutes or so.
Okay, so let's bring up a thing here. We will make a new presentation. Which we'll call SMG presentation. I think as soon as it finishes loading up, I'll share this with you as soon as I can. It's just doing its loading thing. SMG presentation. We can choose a theme.
We could.
I don't know. The themes are good, but
that's less important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Now it's in the right folder. Are we in a chat somewhere? Here, I'll put it in the Google Meet chat. There's chat in here. Yeah.
Yes, there's a chat.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. I'm in.
Right, so just type in James. Can I change the... whatever.
So yeah, we'll want to make two. To sort of like general overview or whatever.
Right. So the question is, should we do them as totally separate or kind of two sections of
I think so.
One? Okay.
No, I think do them separate, yeah.
So should we start with the general one?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
And honestly, this might just be completely already written. Like these might just be the slides.
It's pretty close, yeah. It might be a bit different, but it's definitely pretty close. Yeah, so this is one of these. Like, yeah, if it's a proper slide deck, then we do things like this. The next slide just says this in giant letters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then we cite the Samples.
Yeah, I wonder if there are Twitch stats.
This isn't the right kind of slide for this, is it? Maybe just...
Twitch. So this is super interesting. Most watched games on Twitch, February 2019. Of the games, so like number 3 is just chatting, so that doesn't count. But everything else until number 7, Hearthstone, and number 8, Overwatch, are directly tied. Fortnite, League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike, PUBG.
Wow.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
Wow, that's crazy. I thought like Kingdom Hearts would be up there, but I guess maybe it wasn't out long enough or something.
I guess not. Then it's Hearthstone, Overwatch, FIFA 19, Sea of Thieves, Call of Duty, Resident Evil, Atlas, GTA. But yeah, the top, I mean, it is stark.
Yeah, that's definitely something we could put on here. Although, honestly, I think that I feel like this is a thing people are not going to need convincing.
No, I think you're right. You're right. But it was even surprising to us.
Right, yeah. I mean, if this was a deck we were, pitching investors with, I would say definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say definitely we should do that. Because we'd want to show how big the market was and whatnot.
Right. My God, Fortnite is 121 million viewer hours.
Yeah, it's insane. I've never played it.
League of Legends is 98, Dota 2 46, Counter-Strike 30, PUBG 28.
Yeah.
And then everything else is 23 and below.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
Pretty nutty. So yeah, MOBA's Counter-Strike and Battle Royales all started as mods. Yep.
Yeah, one question is like, is the word mods enough of a, is that standard enough to be okay, or should we?
We might want to use words like community created, or as community contributions. Started out as community contributions.
Yeah.
To tie into our future use of the term contribution and contributor.
Community. Yeah, we'll just say they were all community made.
Yeah, community made.
Yeah. Okay, so then. Yeah, this should maybe just be one slide. I'll reformat this for sure at some point. This one we might want to make into like a real slide.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would call this an opportunity more than a problem. I guess we don't have a problem on the
Yeah,
on the
I don't
slide.
think we'll write in problem.
But it is sort of phrased as a problem, not an opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they're similar. Like the point is, this is a thing that no one is doing that has a big upside.
So we believe that we believe that as a proper reward for community contributions could drive this method of something about this method of creation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we could say something like, we believe that properly rewarding community creators can lead to, even more great games or something like that. But I don't know if that's I don't know how strong that is versus
yeah,
the way, this sort of way, the more negative way of phrasing it.
Yeah. So right, what is but I think this is the hard one, right? This is the hard one. What is our core belief?
I think that the core belief is really this. If you see my outline, like, this is really the core thing. It's this vision, right? And you could even get rid of this slide if you wanted. And the kind of it's a link between this and this.
Yeah.
It's a link that says, like, okay, so
right.
even though there's been all this community stuff,
right, and that was done with no incentive, with no financial incentive to create them.
Right. This, community is already this big important thing, but could be bigger. Its potential is not.
And they even did that thing without financial reward, without a promise for financial reward.
Yeah.
Like that's like, this is the level we get to just by communities doing what they want in their free time.
Yeah. Another way to do it would be like say, they were all.
Am I losing you?
I don't think so. I can hear you.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, good. They were all made, without. Well, I don't know. Do we even need this?
Yeah, maybe not.
A platform that rewards creators. Rewards. Yeah, or like something like, but community created games are still a sideshow. Like, this is kind of like, this is another way to link them. Like, you could say,
right,
all this stuff has been made. Like, these have become the most influential games in the world, but the actual.
But only after game studios took the ideas that the community offered.
Yes, that's good. That's
and
good. Right. Like private game studios took community ideas and developed. Yeah, this is pretty strong. I don't know if this is what we want to do, but it's definitely pretty strong.
Yeah.
And developed them into, are they billion-dollar games? I don't know.
into the games that they are.
Yeah, into.
Like, Dota 1 isn't at the top. Dota 2 is.
Games in the world. Right, exactly. Like Dota 1 goes to
Dota
2 and League of Legends.
Right.
I don't know what Counter-Strike was originally called. If it was something else.
I mean, Counter-Strike went to Counter-Strike, right? Like, Valve just started developing Counter-Strike.
Right.
Counter-Strike was taken over. The development of Counter-Strike was taken over by Valve. I think Valve might have hired that group, actually.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what they did with Dota 2, too, actually. And this is one of the reasons to like Valve, right? Is that they hired the main maintainer for Dota 1 to help them build Dota 2.
Yeah.
Which is great, but they didn't hire all the people that worked on Dota 1.
And once they hire you, the community is
the spigot
excluded.
is turned off, right? Yeah.
Right.
No more community created heroes or whatever.
Right.
Counter-Strike. I don't know, like what.
Yeah, there's something in this slide that maybe we need and maybe we don't.
Or history of Counter-Strike. Yeah, I do think it's strong to show how this has happened. Like,
yeah,
like it started with Dota 1, but then it got taken over by these companies.
Right. So actually, this is I think the strong part here is that private game studios. The reason that it's the private game studios that made them the biggest games in the world, is because the private game studios put money into their development, and so community have extremely good ideas,
right.
but they aren't paid for the development of those ideas, and so a system that combines the two ought to do even better than these private studios taking these ideas and running with them, sort of one at a time.
Right. Yeah, I like that.
Right. So what we want to do is create a financial structure around community-driven community ideas.
Right.
That rewards the successful community ideas without taking them out of the community. That's what we want. We basically want to scale this idea of taking community ideas and putting resources into them to develop games. Right.
Stuff like this. Construct the Half-Life mod. I don't know. It's not a good way of phrasing it. Probably a better way. Oh, this really doesn't. I'm sure there's a better way to do that. Okay, History Battle Royale. Thank you. Yeah. DayZ, maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like any of them are exactly. Doesn't seem like there's maybe an exact original. But of course, that's true for these too. Like Dota 1, it's not like that emerged from nothing. So maybe say DayZ.
History.
And Fortnite. Can we?
Yeah, like gameplay mods featuring last man standing rules has been a frequent staple of multiplayer online action games. Generally, fewer total players as early as 1990s. Bomberman introduced multiplayer game mods with players.
Bomberman?
Bomberman. Yeah.
Which version of Bomberman?
I don't know. Wikipedia doesn't say. All players all starting with the same minimal abilities, collective power-ups, blah, blah, blah. The elements of scavenging and surviving on large open world map were popularized through survival games. A server plugin named Hunger Games, later changed to survival games, was developed for Minecraft. So the first battle royale maybe was a Minecraft mod.
Yeah, maybe, but it doesn't say what it was
called. Also, DayZ was a mod for Arma 2.
Yeah. DayZ is the one that I've heard referenced most.
Yeah, so yeah.
I think it's okay to go with that. But
right, DayZ. That's right. That'll be the recognizable.
Yeah.
The recognizable shift.
Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Private game studios took community ideas and used their resources to develop the biggest games in the world.
Right.
And so what we say is, that's not the right button. This is what I want.
Yeah, rewards creators for successful contributions and then helps players find the best yeah. Let's say because we changed the name from mod.
Yeah.
To
rewards creators,
we actually
words
didn't use a
community creators.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Helps. This to be. This is definitely not the way to format this exactly.
Yeah. This could maybe be 2 slides.
Yeah. I don't think it should be 2. Well, maybe.
I think it's fine for the level we're at.
Yeah, another option is to just add like a title, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if we should try to use similar language to our slide 4, using resources to develop.
Right. Yeah.
Uses resources to develop community creations.
Yeah, or gives community creators resources.
Resources. Yes. Yes.
And then let's, and then the idea would be you put a title up here that's like something like, a better system, right, or something like that.
I think the vision.
Or maybe our vision. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. The vision sounds like some kind of mythical thing.
Yeah.
The vision. So match games. I'm just gonna kill this because it's annoying.
Yeah, gives community creators resources to develop even better games, maybe. Or to scale this method of creation, of development.
A platform that gives community creators the resources or whatever. Yeah, I mean this is an interesting point because there's an argument to be made that you couldn't have just taken the people making the Counter-Strike mod and given them all the money, but not the support of Valve, and gotten the Counter-Strike of today.
Of course,
right? There's that argument, and so we shouldn't just pretend like, oh, if we just gave whatever one of those weird screen names of one of the people who was creating, if we only gave Aghanim $6 million to keep making Dota 1, or whatever, that we would have gotten an even better game or something like that. It's a little bit silly.
No, I think the point is though that I think the point is that the curation market, like in some sense, the way that the market caused Valve to choose one mod over another to develop.
Right, and
so we want to scale that.
Yeah, I think what we are arguing is, these are the benefits that we're arguing. Infinite variety and more optimal balance. What we're not arguing is that this is going to lead right away to like more polished products, or like a more cohesive tournament support right away, or something like that, right?
I think we are arguing that it'll be better games.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So we're not trying to compare on exactly the same scale as this. Like, we're not trying to say this is what our system's going to do exactly.
Right. Let's say games, not mods.
Yes. Where does it say that? Yeah. Helps players find the best games. Nice. Games to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Right. So our argument is that given a platform that gives community creators resources and helps players find the best games to play, a platform with those qualities can create infinite gameplay variety and more optimal balance.
Right.
More optimal balance and I think more optimal balance is enough.
Yeah, we might want to add that, like, so Valve takes Dota 1 and makes Dota 2, and it's this great big game, and it's amazing that this great idea was generated by the community, and then resources were able to turn it into Dota 2. But they also, in doing that, they closed this sort of spigot of creativity that led to this great game in the first place, right? So that might be something that we want to say here.
Yeah.
Private game studios took community ideas and used their resources to develop the biggest games in the world, but in doing so, they closed off the community to those games, or something like that,
Right. More consistent innovation, I think.
Yeah.
I think a platform like this can create more consistent innovation.
Yeah, something like that these games no longer support the community.
Right. These games no longer benefit from community innovations.
Right. Benefit from the community's creativity. Yeah, I'm trying to use like not quite as. I don't know why I have this
business speak.
Right, I have this intuition that we should try to not use startup jargon, but instead, video game jargon a little bit more.
100% agree.
Creativity instead of disruption, or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Cascading disruption.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, I think
shit, that's
something about just like more consistent, more better games. I mean, like, that platform can create better games.
Right. I mean, that's what this point is supposed to be. So maybe we should just make it a little clearer.
Yeah, variety is one portion of better games.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I mean, the idea is that we're like
of better games.
Yeah,
and
like
I think that's
this process that led to Dota 1, that led to Counter-Strike, that led to DayZ, this process will be continually stimulated. It doesn't go till it makes something nice and then get cut off over and over again. You know, it's like
it doesn't get stopped as soon as a company decides to own it.
Right. So I'm trying to think of a good way to say that, but that's kind of the thing.
Right. I mean, that's something like constant progress.
Right. We'll
an environment for sustainable progress.
Games or something like that. Games. I mean, maybe that's a little bit better.
So yes, an infinite variety of games is one half of it, but it also will let us pick out the good ones from that.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So the fact that, I mean, that infinite variety of games is already out there in everybody's minds.
Right.
We're just not coordinating that, right?
Steady, a stream of right. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of the idea that, like, to find a great game, you need to go through 999 bad games.
Right.
And so this is a faster way of doing that, sort of.
Well, right. and like, Valve did that with their mods, right? Valve did that with Dota. They were like, oh, we've seen 1,000 bad mods, and here's a great mod. So let's put money into this great mod.
Well, and I think they also, Valve being, this is a totally typical Valve move, right? They just say, like, you know what? As smart as we are and as good as we are as game designers, we're not going to be able to design a better game than this one that the community came up with. So we should just take this one.
We should just do this, right? Yeah. We can polish it better than the community can.
Right. We can turn this into a really great game, but what we can't do is replicate the quality of the game design here.
Yeah.
Because that can only be done through this crucible, community process thing.
Yeah. I think an infinite variety of games is
it doesn't quite
not the full point. I think it's a continuous stream of new good games.
Right.
And a continuous stream of balancing of existing games.
Continuous stream
of good games. I mean, maybe that's just it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Well, I think they need to, like, of great new games or something like that. Like,
sure. Yeah, of great.
Because it's important that they're new. I think too, right?
Yes.
That the idea is this allows people to try out new things with others so much more.
Yep. So, a continuous stream of great new games and a continuous stream of like, the startup speak would be incremental progress on existing games.
Can create a continuous stream of great new games. Yeah, we just need to find a good parallelism. I don't want to say a continuous stream of balance.
No, yeah, constant. Constant improvement.
Yeah.
Constant improvement of existing games.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe something like this. Create a continuous stream.
Yeah.
Create new games and constantly improve existing games. Something like that.
Or maybe even just like constantly improve them.
Yeah. Constantly create a... And then I want to just do something like this because it looks bad to have one word there.
Yeah, yep.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, a platform like this can...
Yeah, I mean, I think this is fine. We just want a way to hit these things, and we'll be talking about it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We'll be
just looks, questions. It looks a bit ugly, but that's fine.
That's we're two people working on this for 3 hours a week.
Yeah. We can't have. We gotta focus on the things that matter, Ezra. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So then, this is the last point of this part of the slide. It's part of the deck.
Right.
Well, I need to recopy it.
Yeah, so it's like we're building that.
Yes, exactly.
And I wonder if it's worth like mentioning that like we are in a moment in history where like new technologies in blockchain are making this possible in a way that wasn't possible before.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good point.
That like the way Valve did it was the best that they had access to at that moment in history.
Yeah.
But that DAOs and crypto economics allow for us to do it in a new and a new and sort of more something way.
Yeah.
More directly, allow us to do it more directly, and something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to build a platform that fully embraces community generated content, design, balance, and process to share. Right, like distributed. Yeah, do we want to say blockchain? Because it's like that's only sort of a part of.
And honestly, blockchain isn't the piece that matters. Blockchain, to me, whenever people say blockchain, they're like, oh, blockchain is a crypto economic primitive. But that's like saying saws are what make furniture so great.
Right. It's like tool. Saying with our new saws, we're able to make great furniture. It's just like exactly. It's like sort of technically true, but like what if you're also using a bunch of other tools.
Like, right. There's also chisels and there's also like whatever.
Right. And maybe what you should be saying is like with our new ore deposits, we're able to make all these great tools that we
exactly.
that we can build furniture out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to say we can't explain the technology on this slide, so we have to say something that will be
of course,
recognizable to people in some way.
Yeah, and blockchain is the term that does that.
We can say DAOs. People won't know what it is, but at least it's a thing they could look up.
It's smart contracts that do it.
Yeah. although that's such a fucking horrible term.
I know.
Contracts. It's so weird.
Decentralization. I mean, advances in decentralized technology. I think.
Yeah, it's the it's the ability to be more secure, or to be more confident in the transactions you're doing on the internet, right? It's the ability to take something that you could have done 10 years ago on the internet, but now you can really be sure that came from that address, and it isn't faked, and it isn't
right
anything that it
doesn't
claim to be.
Really, what we're doing is we're decentralizing what Valve did with Dota.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. Like, that's to people that know what that means. Like, that's the core, right? We're decentralizing the hiring of community contributors for their contributions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think something like
like this could be on another slide, to be honest. Like this second part.
Yeah.
And then maybe we have a sentence here about the technology, or about
that, or just a claim that new technology is making this uniquely possible now. I mean, advances in decentralized new technologies
makes it possible to what? Right, to help, like, makes it possible for communities to sort of empower themselves without, a centralized benefactor. It's kind of, I mean, this is not a great way of saying it.
Yeah. I think makes it possible for communities to, it's about coordination. Right. Allows community, makes it possible for communities to coordinate this kind of development in a way that was not possible before.
Right. Yeah. To coordinate, to collaborate.
Yeah. And on this kind of development.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's two things, right? It makes it possible for them to actually collaborate on the work, like the actual programming of the game better, and also to collaborate in the sense of to pay people, in a decentralized way.
Right.
Because before that's one of the big reasons to have a firm. It's like, well, how are you gonna make sure that everybody who needs to be paid gets paid, and it doesn't all go to one person, and then the bottom falls out or whatever, right? Like, you need an organization, and now maybe you don't need that as much.
Yep. Yeah, it makes it possible for communities to collaborate on the development of a game at a scale that was not possible before.
On game design at a scale.
I know that's startup-y.
Yeah, well, no, that's okay.
I think that might be the key.
Thousands of people to collaborate on game designs. Yeah, maybe it's something like community technology makes it possible for millions of people to collaborate on game design.
Right.
Or something like that. Right? Is that more direct? Like, just saying
you can
now have 1 million people that are collaborating on this, but it's still coordinated and secure, kind of,
Yeah.
To collaborate. To
design. So to design together, to coordinate design, to collaborate effectively. Maybe it's better just the way you said it before. Communities to collaborate. Oh, I don't know. It's people to collaborate.
Yeah, and I think there's also something about bringing those resources to bear without losing the community aspects.
Millions of people to collaborate on game design.
Right. It's like bringing those resources to bear on this design.
Support each other directly
as a community is what's
without,
yes.
Without a centralized control or something like that.
So I would love to avoid sort of the primary or the primacy of decentralization, right? Like I don't want to do decentralization for decentralization's sake.
Yeah, I guess I mean like if it's a negative that, Valve had to take control and then that kind of cut the community out of it, or whatever.
Well, right. I mean, I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it's without centralized control, like fine, we can have centralized control as long as we don't lose the thing we care about is not losing the community aspect.
Right. New technology makes it possible for millions of people to collaborate on game design and support each other. New technology makes it possible for millions of people to collaborate on game design and support each other through secure markets or something like this. Like,
yes. Like what is it? What is it about?
The idea being like we're trying to like the reason you can now do this with a gazillion people and it's sustainable is that one, you can coordinate them somehow, right? You could take inputs from all these gazillion people and turn it into something that looks coherent at the end. And two, you can give them ways of paying each other that don't require, a big central player to manage everything.
Try to say that without relying on a big central player being bad.
Right. So like support each other securely. I don't know if that's the right word. Like support each other.
It was sure. I think.
And also, honestly, it just gives them a way to support each other, right? Like without a system
at all. Right.
Without that coordination, where it's like what you're doing and it's all happening on its own, and right, like
Valve cannot coordinate millions of people.
Right, and also like if you're playing a game that uses 800 components, you can't be forced to click a button to support the component creator every time you play the game. Right.
So, I mean, I think new technology makes it possible for millions of people to collaborate on game design. Period. That's
I mean, and then I would put this at the I would put this at the beginning, right? Yeah. And then say Setmatch Games is building, a platform to do that,
Right. Yeah, so I think new technology and it's not just technology, but it's also economic theories or whatever. And economic structures.
Right, yeah. I mean, in a sense, it is still the technology, because I would say that the economic structures are basically made possible because of the technology.
Sure, yep.
We could we could still add that. I feel like it's fine to just say new technology, because the fact is we're not explaining any of it here anyway. So either you're going to buy that and be interested enough to try to learn more, or you're going to say like, well, that's bullshit. And
right.
You're gonna kind of think that either way.
Yeah.
Building. Something like that?
Yeah, fully embraces community collaboration and leverages this new technology for game design.
Leverages.
This new technology.
Yeah, now I feel like there's only so many times you can say new technology before you have to start talking about what it is. And I feel like this is one too many times. Set Match Games is building a platform that leverages this technology.
That leverages crypto economics.
Yeah. That's good. Crypto economics.
To fully embrace community collaboration.
Yeah, either to or and. Like, to is a little weird. It's like to fully embrace community collaboration. To fully support, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just to support. That leverages crypto economics to support community collaboration.
I think that's
or collaborative design, maybe. Collaborative design.
Yeah.
From new games and from new
game development. I think from new game development.
From game development and balance. Yeah, perfect. Game development and balance, art assets, and profit sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, the difference between development and design is kind of subtle, but I think is important here, and that what Valve did is develop Dota 1 into Dota 2.
Yeah.
Dota 1 was a game design. Dota 2 was a developed game.
Right. Was that design further developed?
Yes.
Yep, I think this is pretty good. And then if we want to, we could do another slide that talks about like, how we're getting started, like what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think maybe we see how it goes the first time we go through, but I think this is a good sort of button.
It is, but I think that as a rule, you should always end something with some kind of call to action,
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah,
some kind of like, and if you're interested, blah, right? Like, follow us on Twitch, go check out our GitHub, whatever, whatever it is we want to say.
Right. We're starting with, what did we say? We're starting with multiplayer card games.
Yeah, we don't even need to say that here. It could just be the thing about like, follow us on Twitter and Twitch. Just literally just do that. Like if you're into what we're doing.
Yep.
We're starting simply with multiplayer card games. Yeah, I don't even know if we need to say that. Like.
Yeah, I agree because I'm not totally sure we're committed to necessarily starting with multiplayer card games. We probably will.
Right, but it's like, who knows? And if we can attract some community members, like, they're certainly not limited to doing that.
Yeah, if somebody comes in and is just gung ho about writing a space sim, let's
there are lots of types of games that have the same benefits card games have for starting with, right? Yeah. That don't need like super real time interactivity, that aren't like graphically intensive,
Totally.
Someone can make some kind of crazy multiplayer distributed hash table Dwarf Fortress game.
Right. Yeah. Come on, let's do it.
I mean, it would be insane because I can't even remotely understand that game to begin with. But
that's why, I mean, like, that's another one. That's kind of a community-driven game. I mean, it's a community discovered game anyway.
Right. Yeah.
which is why it's so amazing.
I mean, it does sound cool. Like you can imagine like a shared world that's shared through a distributed hash table. So it's sort of like constantly morphing along the peripheries and things like that.
Yep.
It's a pretty cool idea.
Oh, anyway, it is 1:00.
Yes.
So I've got to get off in the next minute or so.
Yeah, I just want to grab the little blurb about like following us on Twitter and whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is, where's the best place to grab that? It's on our, it's here somewhere, right? Channel. Wow, where's the best place to find it? Maybe GitHub?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could just write it now if you're interested. Follow us on Twitter.
Well, it's just exactly this thing, so I'm just gonna grab it.
Okay.
Like, right? It's just exactly this, basically. Except how should they reach out? What is this usually? Your email or something? Oh, I think it's supposed to be Twitter. Yeah, so we should link Twitter.
Yeah, what do I have on the
I think that's meant to be like reach out on Twitter, because it's the next sentence is we respond to all messages on Twitter.
Oh, I'm not seeing what you're looking at.
Oh, I'm back in the presentation.
I see. Yeah, we respond to all messages. You're talking about the Set Match Games website.
No, I don't think so. Oh, yes, I guess it is the same thing that's from the website.
Yep.
Yeah, so something like that. So if it's an open source project, if you're interested in participating, please reach out. We respond to all messages on Twitter. We stream our development process on Twitch every Saturday from 12 to 2 p.m. EST. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Are we doing 11 to 2 now?
Oh, I guess we are kind of.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. Oh, well, then we definitely have to say 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah.
11 to 2 p.m. is confusing. And then this shouldn't say our solution. Are these? Wait, why do we have two of these? We just have two copies of this. We don't need that, obviously. Okay. Great. All right, so yeah, Set Match Games. Best multiplayer games of the last decade designed by players. Always Counter-Strike and Battle Royales were all community made. That should maybe be one slide. I don't know. Private game studios took community ideas.
And I like these. I like these quick, hard-hitting slides.
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning.
Were all community made. Yeah, I think that the flow at this beginning part, I think, should be worked on slightly, but
okay.
the ideas are there. Just reading through, it's like the best multiplayer games of the last 2 decades were designed by players. MOBAs, Counter-Strike, and Battle Royales were all community made. By the way, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be spelled with an E or not. Like, I see it sometimes spelled with an E. So, I don't know. I'll leave it for now. But
yeah, Wikipedia says both are acceptable.
Yeah, so there you go. Scott, we're out of jail free. And Battle Royales were all community made. Private game studios took community ideas and used their resources to develop the biggest games in the world. That doesn't quite flow from the previous slide. I don't think. But that's fine. We can smooth it out. I'll
sure.
I'll throw this in front of some people and tell them what they think, and I'm sure get some good feedback. And then I think this would be great to have maybe both of these be versions of them that could be like Medium posts or something that could live natively on the internet somewhere and not be a
totally, yeah, 100%.
I don't know exactly what they should be, but Medium is the first thing that's occurring to me.
Yeah, let's take when we give this presentation, let's take like what we end up saying and the conversation that ends up happening and sort of take that content and turn it into a Medium post and maybe a podcast.
Yeah. If we can, it might be biting off more than we could chew to try to do a podcast, because while I'm sure that conversation would be good, it might be a little too. Yeah, I think we should just do the blog post thing. I think that's a good idea.
Well, pull content out of it though.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, because for the podcast, I think it's probably pretty important to make a bunch of podcasts, and I don't know how much we're going to be able to do that in the near future.
Yeah, I really have to go.
Yeah, you gotta go.
So
okay,
but we will get that.
Yes. Okay, Jesse.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.
See ya. Oh boy.